into the local planning agency, our November 19th meeting. Can we please have a roll call?
Yes. Present tonight we have Darrell Lopez, Lawrence Wright, Curtis Gashlin, Art Weaver, Emma Reichert, and Todd Sykes. And absent is Kristen Swetland.
Okay. She did say she was going to come.
She did
We'll
say.
acknowledge her when she comes in. If you could all take a moment to please silence your phone and put them on vibrate or just turn the volume off completely, we would appreciate it. Next item is approval minute. What is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Curtis.
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
All right. All right. Okay.
Todd.
Todd, it was Todd. Oh, I'm sorry.
Bifocal hearing aid too.
I can't see that far. Anyway, any comments, discussion on the, we'll call a vote then. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We approve the minutes. We now move into public comment. This is the time for anyone wishing to speak that's not on the agenda item can do so now. I see none, so I'll move over to, I'll close the public comment. We have one public meeting item, a deviation request for 1545 Peace Lily Way. Is the applicant here?
Yes, sir.
If you can come up and state your name and address for the records.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, and all other members of the council. I am Abdul Khalik. I am the property owner at 1545 Peace Lily Way, and I am here to request the following two deviations. A 2.4-foot deviation to the required 10-foot minimum side setback requirement to allow the existing equipment, pool equipment, which is a pump and a filter and pipes, to be no more than 7.5 feet from the side property line. This is a 24% deviation request. Now, the important thing here is that this is a new construction, so when we closed on the house, the pool equipment was already there. So we had nothing to do with it. We had no say. And we closed on the property, and this is where it was. Okay. The builder or whoever, they had actually made a mistake. Should have been on the other side. So, and that is the reason for this request, to correct it through this process. Now we are here and we have a pool and we would like to install a heat pump to heat the pool. So now the heat pump, by logic, has to be next to the pool equipment. That's where it has to be located. And that's the reason for the second deviation request. So the second deviation request is necessitated by the first deviation request. And that's basically a 4.5-foot deviation to the required 10-foot minimum side setback requirements to allow placement of a pool equipment, which is a pool heat pump, to be no closer than 5.5 feet from the side property line. This is a 45% deviation request. As a result of the location of the existing pool equipment, the pool heat pump needs to be next to the existing pool equipment. So that's where it has to be placed. That's all what I have to say.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Anybody have any questions?
This is on in attachment 2. It's shown there what the locations are. There are several attachments to this paperwork.
Okay. Nobody's got any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. You're welcome to seat. We're going to hear from staff. But before we hear from staff, let the record show that Ms. Sweetland has joined us. Can we hear from staff, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for the local planning agency to approve two deviations for 1545 Peace Lily Way. The first deviation is a 2.4-foot deviation to the required 10-foot minimum side setback requirement in the City of Oviedo Land Development Code, Section 4.15B, accessory pool, patio, or screen enclosure structure requirements, to allow the existing placement of a pool equipment, which is a pump and filter, to be no closer than 7.6 feet from the side property line. And this represents a 24% deviation. The second deviation is for a 4.5-foot deviation to the required 10-foot minimum side setback requirement in the City of Oviedo Land Development Code, Section 4.15B, accessory pool, patio, or screen enclosure structure requirements, to allow the placement of a pool equipment, which is a heat pump, to be no closer than 5.5 feet from the side property line, and this represents a 45% deviation. Land Development Code Section 2.4D1E states that the LPA shall review and act upon building permit applications, including amendments that require a deviation greater than 20% of the minimum LDC requirement. The two requested deviations are 24% and 45% respectively. Thus, the LPA shall have the final authority. The subject property is located on Peace Lily Way in the Oviedo Gardens subdivision. The property has a future land use designation of low-density residential with a single-family residential zoning district. LDC Section 4.15B, accessory pool, patio, or screen enclosure structure requirements, requires that accessory pools, patios, and screen enclosures observe the same side setback as the principal building setback. The side setback for the R1A zoning district is 10 feet from the property line. The property owner wishes to install a heat pump adjacent to the existing pool equipment, pump and filter, on the east side of the subject property. The existing pool equipment was placed in error by the pool company. As a result of the location of the existing pool equipment, the pool heating pump needs to be next to the existing pool equipment, and you can see that in attachment 2. The property owner provided a written narrative to address the criteria of approval as required by LDC Section 2.7C, and you can see his narrative in attachment 3. When you look at the criteria, the first one is existence of special condition. And based on our analysis, there are no special conditions or circumstances that are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved. The second is compatibility. And based on our analysis, the scale and intensity of the proposed deviations are compatible with and will not adversely impact land use activities on adjacent properties. There is an existing fence located on the adjacent neighbor's property line. The third is the proper use of mitigative techniques. And based on our analysis, the property owner proposes to plant 2 shrubs in front of the heat pump facing Peace Lily Way to reduce the visual impact of the reduced side setbacks. The fourth is protection of environmentally sensitive areas. Based on staff's analysis, staff did not find any environmentally sensitive areas that would be affected if the requested deviation was approved. The fifth is the only minimum deviation granted, and this is the minimum deviation to allow for the existing placement of the construction of a new pool equipment within the required 10-foot minimum side setback, as well as the existing placement of the existing equipment. The sixth is open space and other facilities, and based on staff's analysis, the proposed deviations would not prevent the property owner from maintaining at least 25% open space on the lot. The seventh is existence of nonconforming uses of other property, not basis for approval. And based on staff's analysis, the existing nonconforming uses on neighboring properties or districts were not considered during the review of the proposed deviation. The eighth is other information. The property owner has addressed the criteria for approval as provided in LDC Section 2.7C and provided supporting photographs of the existing pool equipment and the side yard, and that's provided in Attachment 4. Staff recommends approval of the deviation development order, which grants the requested deviations with one condition. And the condition is that the property owner shall plant 2 shrubs in front of the heat pump facing Peace Lily Way as mitigation. This concludes staff's presentation, and we're available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Mr. Curtis?
On the, it says here there's a 5-foot drainage easement. I'm guessing that's a swale. Is it a swale? Does anybody know?
Can you please speak into the microphone? I didn't hear your question. I heard the 5-foot drainage easement.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a swale, and I'd like to know if it is or not. The only reason I'm bringing that up is, I guess, 2 small things. One, if there's 2 plants, one of them shouldn't be in the swale. It's going to wind up just blocking it.
Is there a
Yeah,
discussion about the plants?
No, it's not about the plants. That would be someone else's.
The plants
Question.
are not, the plants are not proposed to be placed in the drainage easement. It's going to be facing the street, so not.
Well, I know, if they're side by side, it could get into it, I don't know, So all I'm just getting to is if it's in the swale, at some point it's going to block drainage, which is not good. And then the other thing is the slab that it sits on would need to be set so that the swale can be returned to its original condition.
You're exactly right. And so the 5-foot easement, the property owner will not be within, it will be a little bit within the 5-foot easement, but our Public Works Department has already reviewed the deviation application,
Okay.
and they did not provide any comments.
Okay.
Sure. I have a simple question. Why 2 deviations? Why don't we just do one? If we were doing a deviation under normal circumstances, we would take the maximum. Why don't we just do 1 deviation for the 5.5 and just take all the existing into it? It's just a question I have. It doesn't.
That's a good question.
Instead of doing 2 deviations,
Yeah.
just do 1 single deviation. Because if he ever changes the equipment out and the equipment gets bigger, then he has to come back.
He would have to come back
he
and
would
do
have to come
another
back for another
deviation.
So why wouldn't we just give him the maximum for 1 single deviation?
Our code requires us to list each deviation, and so each deviation has to stand on its own.
So the equipment in general has to be standalone, separate, existing versus proposed?
Yes.
Okay, well, that answers the question. Thank you.
But that's a good point, though.
I mean, again, if the filter gets bigger, or then he's got to come back. So it just, to me, it makes, we're making it too tight when we could just give him 1 deviation, that's all.
Anybody else have any questions?
No.
What is the board's recommendation?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wright?
Make a motion to, we're approving, correct?
Yep.
Approve deviation request for 1545 Peace Lily Way, as written.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Whitland? Any other comments, discussions from the board before we vote on it? No. Seeing none, all those in favor of the deviation say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Good luck on your project. Okay, moving on. I don't see any public hearings scheduled. Any discussion items from any individuals on the board that would like to discuss at this time for future meetings? Nope. Okay. So we'll move on to future meeting dates. The next date we have is December 3rd and January 7th. Is there anything scheduled for December 3rd at this point?
Yes, we have one item.
One
It's going to be the Oviedo Mall, DRI.
Okay. All right. Other than that, I don't see anything. Any motion to adjourn? Second.
Second.
All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.